Amazing. Okay, so my next creature is Genesis, of course in a deck like mine, so a lot of people are going to be assuming since it's the black, green, and white colors, it's going to be based on reanimation, which it is, and Genesis is the perfect way to get creatures back from the graveyard to my hand. It's an amazing utility card, so tutor it up, pitch it into the graveyard, and then start going bonkers. Next card, Glory, the only card ever printed in Hebrew. So it's the same concept as Genesis, tutor it up, send it to the graveyard, but instead of bringing a creature back from your graveyard during your upkeep for 2 colorless and a green, you pay 2 colorless and a white whenever you want, and you choose a color, and creatures that you control gain protection from that color until end of turn. So it makes your Birds of Paradise into a card that's going to chump block the biggest creature your opponent has all day, and you won't have to worry about it. After that, Karmic Guide, probably one of the best recursion creatures in the game. It's flying, protection from black, and echo. Of course, the echo is 3 colorless, white, white. But when it comes into play, you return a creature from your graveyard and put it into play. So therefore, it's probably one of the easiest to abuse as well because of the echo cost. And yeah, it's probably one of my favorite cards to play up against opponents because it generates so much card advantage. Boneshredder, another card that uses Echo and has an amazing effect for what it does. It's 3 for a 1/1 flyer, so you can chump block with it as well. When it comes into play, you destroy a non-artifact, non-black creature. So it's a great way to get rid of one of your opponent's little pesky creatures that's annoying you. I tutor it up a lot, and I drop it, get rid of one of their creatures, it dies, and I just bring it back using Genesis and abuse it significantly.
It's pretty good.
Yep. Then there's Reveilark, 5 mana, 4/3 flyer. When it leaves play, return 2 creatures with power 2 or less to my graveyard to play. So use it, bring back Karmic Guide. Karmic Guide triggers, bring back Reveilark. It's a good way to abuse it. It also has Evoke for 1 more, so I drop it using its Evoke cost. It dies, comes back immediately. It's a great beat stick as well. And I always want it to die whenever it's in play, so if I ever got the opportunity to get it sent to the graveyard, I will. Wood Elves comes into play, search my library for a forest and put the card into play, and then I shuffle my library. So one good thing about it is that it searches me dual lands because I don't have to search for a basic forest. And pretty much I go get that, get a dual land, have an extra mana floating for some sort of 1-cost removal spell if I want, and if not, I just have 1 mana floating to call some bluffs. Yavimaya Elder, a good card for card advantage. I get a sack it, draw a card, and when it's put into a graveyard from play, I search my library for 2 basic lands and put them into my hand. So it's a great way to generate card advantage. Again, it's another one of those cards that I want to get chump blocked all day, and then I can sack it to draw a card. Then there's Riftsweeper. This is probably one of the cards that I'm thinking of taking out at the moment. It's 2 mana for a 2/2. So, and then when it comes into play, I return a face-up card that was exiled or removed from the game and shuffle it into my library. So it's one of those like, oh, they Path to Exile or Swords to Plowshare. It's one of my big creatures. I get it back into my library. No big deal. And finally, to screw a lot of decks over, Linvala, Keeper of Silence. It's a 3/4 for 4 flyer, and activated abilities of creatures your opponents control can't be activated. So it aggravates a lot of people who are using big beat sticks with a lot of activated abilities, such as Spiritmonger, or I don't know what else. Kargan Dragonlord I've seen played in some mono red decks, and it also screws over a couple of generals as well.
It's really annoying.
So next I'm going to go for the big creatures. So the big creatures of the deck are starting off with Spiritmonger, 5 for a 6/6. Whenever it deals damage to a creature, put a +1/+1 counter on Spiritmonger. So here's a big beat stick that just keeps on getting bigger and bigger. 1 black regenerate and 1 green becomes the color of my choice until end of turn. So it's a good way to get around protection from green and black. And also, since he regenerates, it's also a good beat stick just for the sake of having a beat stick. Sun Titan, another good recurring engine, 6 for a 6/6 Vigilance, enters the battlefield or attacks, return a permanent in my graveyard with CMC 3 or less. So, effectively, comes in, go get a land, comes in, go get Wood Elves, Sakura-Tribe Elder, any of the small little creatures that have been destroyed early game that I might want back in play.
Yeah, he's good with shenanigans.
Yes, he is. Primeval Titan, probably one of the cards that is most known for me as if it does not get countered, I win the game. 6 for a 6/6 trample comes into play. Search my library for 2 lands and put them into play tapped. So my main targets are, of course, stuff like Maze of Ith, Mystifying Maze, Cabal Coffers, and Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth. Everyone probably already knows how powerful it is in Standard, with a couple of decks that it's running, and in EDH it's probably 10 times as powerful as it is in Standard.
That's true.
Divinity of Pride. Its mana cost might be a little obscene, but in a deck like mine, it's great, and since you start off with 40 life, odds are, most of the times that you drop it, it's an 8/8 flying lifelink for 5, which is already above the curve for most decks, and for a 5 CMC creature, even though there is no colorless in it, it's definitely worth it to run. Terastodon, another one of the best beat sticks in EDH for green. Comes into play, I destroy up to 3 target non-creature permanents, and if they are put into the graveyard this way, I get a 3/3 elephant for each one. Or they get a 3/3 elephant. So in this way, if there's something like Leyline and the Void out, I can get rid of 3 permanents and not have to worry about my opponents getting 3/3 elephants as well. So that's the one good thing about it. Aside from that, late game I can get rid of 3 of my lands and I have 18 power for 8 mana. It's really good. Ink Eye, Servant of the Oni. Probably one of the best sneak attack creatures ever. Swing it with your opponent for a Birds of Paradise. They think that it's just something harmless that's a 0/1, so of course they don't block it, then all of a sudden, bam, this is swinging at their face and I steal one of their creatures. Also, it regenerates. It's probably one of the most versatile black creatures in the entire game. Avenger of Zendikar. Of course, this one is in Chinese, so whatever.
You can read that?
Yeah, sure, why not? So it's 7 for a 5/5, comes into play. I get a 0/1 plant token for each land I control. Landfall, each plant token gets a +1/+1 counter on it. Good beat stick, good late game finisher, and if an opponent has Braids out, I want to tutor this up and drop it as fast as I can, so I don't have to worry about losing any of my relevant cards during the game.
Yeah.
Avatar of Woe. So in a heavy reanimation deck like mine is, since it relies on the graveyard so much, having 10 or more creatures in my graveyard isn't a big deal. And a 6/5 fear that can destroy any creature I want, it's pretty good. And then finally, Angel of Despair, 7 mana, 5/5 flyer with the Vindicate on it. Sure, why not? I'll take that at any time that I want. So that's the reason why I use it. Destroys a permanent, get a 5/5 beat stick. Hey, why not? It's pretty good.
She's a pretty good card.
So after that, I'll go with the artifacts. So let's start off. Mox Diamond. If I have a handful of basics or lands that I don't need, drop a Mox Diamond. I get the color fixing that I want. It's pretty much one of the most efficient cards that I run, and when I draw it opening hand, it can get kind of scary. Sol Ring, staple in EDH, probably the best card or the second best card in EDH, depending on whether people prefer Sensei's Divining Top or Sol Ring. 1 colorless, add 2 colors to your mana pool. It's pretty broken. Everyone should have one of these in their deck.
Key card.
Sensei's Divining Top, 1 colorless. 1 colorless, look at the top 3 cards in your library, put them back in any order. And so that's already good for fixing up your draws. And tap, draw a card, and then put that on your library. So the only way to get rid of it is pretty much through Crossing Grip, and that's it. Lightning Greaves. Pretty much second best equipment or best equipment in all of EDH. Equipped creature has Shroud and Haste. So shove it on one of your generals or one of your key utility creatures and you're pretty much good to go and probably never going to have them die. Tormod's Crypt. Graveyard removal at probably its finest. 0 mana. Sack Tormod's Crypt. Remove an opponent's graveyard from the game. Works well against other players who use graveyard shenanigans. And also just great in general if they're going to use some sort of spell like Living Death, which also seems to be a staple in a lot of black decks recently.
Yeah.
So, on to Planeswalkers. Liliana Vess. Good Planeswalker, +1 target opponent discards a card, although it's mainly used for second ability, which is search your library for a card and then put it on top of your library.
Tutoring.
So, tutoring is always good. So that's generally what I use it for. I'm never ever going to use her ultimate ability because as good as it is, it'll die before it reaches 8. Garruk Wildspeaker. Another one of those cards where it's kill it now or I lose. +1 on tap 2 lands, so on tap 2 coffers. It gets pretty ridiculous. Put a 3/3 beast creature token into play. Good for defense if I need to play defensively. And -4, it's an overrun. So again, it's just a win more ability, but if I get it off, sure, why not? I'll take it.